Kia ora tātou. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Dunedin City Council. Welcome councillors, staff, the general public and the media. Our prayer today is being led by Sheikh Azrarul, of the Imam of the Al Huda Mosque. Welcome.
Good afternoon to everyone. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. The meaning of this prayer is all praise due to God, who is the Lord of the universe. He is merciful. He is owner of the judgment day. O Lord, we worship you alone, and we ask your help always. So guide us right and true path. Do not take us astray, and not the way of those who went away from right path. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you, Sheikh. We now enter public forum, and our first speaker is Jonathan Pere of the Dunedin Youth Centre. Welcome, Jonathan.
Sir, how are you? Are we? Yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little bit about myself. I'm the founder and director of Save NZ, which is a network and a community of people around New Zealand called Survivors of Abuse and Violence Network for New Zealand. Also, my other title is producer and director for a new initiative of a talk show that's being put together for locals with locals by locals. It's a Dunedin show for Dunedin Nights. That's just a little bit about me. I've just had a bit of, so I'm here and I've got my Save NZ hat on today. So we are hoping to move this initiative where Dunedin Youth Centre be established. We do understand that the council had put together a project back in 2010, and it was an initiative called the Youth Zone. So we'd like the council, while I'm here, to revisit that if they like. As we know that refugees are coming, and we're hoping to put a centre together to not only provide tools for our own youth, but visitors and youth that are going to come into Dunedin, and we're hoping to get support and put this youth centre together. We're looking at partners, for example, community groups, high schools, Māori wardens, sponsors and donations, anti-violence groups, Dunedin Council, all councils, youth council, agencies dedicated to youth incentives, child, youth and family, creative arts community, the representatives from the international community, for example, other international cities, Otago University, Otago Politics Student Support, the queer support, and suicide prevention intervention agencies. We are hoping to make a collaborative, and with that collaborative we are looking at having a governing body or putting a committee together so that this governing body will help support and mentor to get this youth centre together. Duration, time, implementation of projects such as the youth centre will be determined on the basis regarding the beneficiaries or partners' time frames and commitment. Duration of establishing a youth centre from start to completion will be outlined when all interested parties hold their first gathering to work out a projected time frame and set dates. A consultation process can include a budget, location, funding, as discussions begin to form a governing body to look at forward projections and finalising a deadline to open a centre for a Dunedin Youth Centre. So what we're looking at is this collaborative just gets together and has chats and what could possibly be put into a youth centre, what tools should be provided for them, what can we do, and making sure that youth run it themselves. Because it's important that we keep like what they design and what they want to put together, we use what they want in our positions, how we can help them make that happen. Donations and sponsorships, we are looking at not government funding, we are going to look for private sector money. So, yep, that's where we're looking at. Governing body would be the Youth Council. They'll be the administrating body, hopefully. Dunedin District Council, hopefully they can revisit that youth zone project that was initiated in 2010. And the local businesses community. Local community groups and volunteer groups. Costings and donations, overheads for the centre, we're looking at longevity. We're looking at making this centre a self-sustainable enterprise, but still run by youth, for youth, with our mentoring support. Period for implementation is hopeful that by establishing Dunedin Youth Centre, its partners are able to form the basic foundations to form a governing body to establish the centre and provide a time frame forecast for mid-2016, ladies and gentlemen, but expected to be extended. As we know, these things just don't pop up. It takes a lot of consultation, takes lots of chats, and to make sure that when we come up with an idea, because we've got to make sure it's the right idea. A name or theme for the project will be funded by the governing body, who will source a specific theme designed around the implementation of a Dunedin Youth Centre. Some themes have come across already to the table. Dunedin Youth Centre, a vibrant culture. As we all know, it's kind of like their culture. We've all been young, and there's a particular culture there. Another thing that's been put forward is Centre for Youth, safeguarding our children and tamariki. So the short-term objective for 2016, hopefully, is to create and establish that governing body, committee to push ahead with a Dunedin Youth Centre 2016 to specifically source funding, donations and sponsors. So the main mentoring process for that, that governing body is to help the youth source money. It's easy, actually. It's dependent on how that model and how that kind of stuff is put together. We all adults, we know how to put this stuff together for them. Provide marketing strategies by either aligning with prominent sponsors. It would be ideal that a partner will hold a specific role to ensure all parties involved are contacted regularly and updated with a progress report. So not only is the governing body is to be put together, got to make sure that the administration, our mentoring staff keeps this youth centre alive, vibrant. Long-term objectives, having a fully functioning youth centre erected by youth, for youth, with the support from the community. Relationships between local community and businesses will be strengthened. Forging good relations with other local groups whose incentives are to provide specific programs for Dunedin Youth Centre. Have a centre open to the public 6 days weekly, hiring out the centre for youth activities. The Dunedin Youth Centre will have a full-time manager appointed by the governing body to help keep the centre operational, because remember again, ladies and gentlemen, it's about self-sustainable longevity. A part-time volunteer coordinator be appointed by the managed volunteers assessing the centre and caretaker for the volunteer centre. Aims achieved at the end of the project are fully established Dunedin Youth Centre. While this project is still in its infancy period and recognition of its start-up in 2010, because we must be, we're very clear that there was a group that did start this, so we're acknowledging that. Saving NZ is just picking it up again, so Saving NZ will move it. The Youth Centre in Dunedin will be beneficial for the wider community. Reconnecting with partners who were part of the initial startup by including their ideas into the project. I must remind you that Dunedin has never ever had a youth centre, and this surprises me. Dunedin Youth Centre that caters for all cultures, all religions, all backgrounds, something that's for all. Having short-term goals to implement long-term objectives in the centre's longevity will be the governing body's responsibility. This, however, makes this in an open document, so because we're already at the infancy start, I'm just moving the wheel a bit. We'll see how it goes. I think it'd be quite a nice idea right now if Council really looks at probably showing their support and just revisiting that youth zone initiative that was kick-started in 2010. So we're asking, please, if we could get your support and maybe getting that revisited, because times have changed, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 2016. Teenagers are thinking quite differently nowadays. 2010, it was fantastic that it did start up then, but we're moving into a new era. We're getting these wonderful, lovely beings that are going to come to the city, and I'm sure that there's going to be some teenagers with them, and we're hopeful that we can get something up and running, not only for all the wonderful youth that we already have that are established in Dunedin now, but for our new visitors. And there we go, and that's me then. Thank you.
Jonathan, are you happy to take questions?
Yes. Yep.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Hawkins.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks Jonathan for coming and speaking to us. You've obviously done a lot of thinking about this already, and so my first question is, who are the cohort of young people that you've been working with in developing that thinking, or just checking in that there is a cohort of young people?
Well, I move along my job takes me around, particular people and voices. So I've just correlated all that kind of information and just banged it in here. And I'm chatting with the Youth Council. So there's a lot of interest, but it's about how's that modelled, and how does it be put together, and who puts that together? Who should be sitting around on the table to ensure that our youth get their voice across? So this is all just about having conversations at the moment. Saving NZ, the network that I founded, we will start moving the wheel. I probably won't sit in the seat for too long, because as I've said before, that it should be run by youth for youth. So I'm only just kick-starting it. Yeah.
Just one other thing, if I may. Have you done any thinking about spaces in particular?
Yes, the Monkey Bar was a location given to me. There was also a question asked if the council had a building spare, if there was a location that we could put our youth in. So yeah, and there are some local businesses, people that have told me they've got buildings too that are more than willing to actually donate a building. I don't think this is the right time and place to talk about names and stuff, but this is a space where we can start kicking conversations, start putting something together. It's 2016. It's just down the track. We're getting these lovely beings coming in. Hopefully we can, together, collaboratively, get something up and running. Yeah. Cheers.
Any further questions? Well done. Jonathan, thank you very much for your submission. Mr Mackay. Isn't it Angus Mackay here? Doesn't appear to be. In which case, can I move on and invite Mr Wiggery to come up? Mr Weggery wants to speak about the South Dunedin flooding. Welcome, Lyndon. Welcome, Lyndon, and the next 5 minutes are yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for this opportunity to come back. I'll just wait until Chris, if I can, just hold my 5 minutes, please, Dave. I won't be just handing you out the submission. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for this opportunity to come back after 3 months and speak to you again on an issue that won't go away. In the minds of many ratepayers, needs to be urgently and decisively addressed. As the Mayor said in today's ODT, referring to climate change, this is impacting on our community now. I want action, and I want it yesterday. At long last, we have a staff report that tells us what many suspected. The inability of the Portobello Road pumping station to handle large flows of water in a major event, and the planned improvements costing up to $500,000 to take place during the current financial year. However, the other contentious issue of mud tank maintenance is simply not covered because it's maintained, we understand, by the roading network, and strangely is the subject of a separate report to be presented to the Infrastructure Services Committee next year. After 3 months patient wait, and with so many concerns directed at Council by local South Dunedin residents on the matter, on behalf of them, and many of them are my good friends, I would question why the delay. Given the widespread concern, I know that you all have read this report very carefully in its background papers. And like me, will have some questions to ask of the authors when it formally comes up on your agenda. So these are my questions. And on behalf of many ratepayers, I would appreciate you taking them into account as our elected councillors when that report comes up for your noting. Number one, given that the existing network was originally designed to cope with a 1 in 10 year event, and planned improvements to ease pressure on South Dunedin pipes have been promised for months by staff, exactly what are these, and I quote, planned infrastructure improvements apart from the Portobello pumping station upgrade? Why still no change to the forecast financial statements for the next 10 years, apart from the $4 million planned for the Surrey Street stormwater diversion scheme? Why is a separate report on the performance of mud tanks on 3 June planned for the Infrastructure Committee next year? And why is it taking so long? Are council staff aware that some Dunedin residents have so lost faith in the ability of council contractors to do their job that they have appointed themselves as drain monitors in their local streets? And I was aware that that happened with the heavy rain we had last Friday. 3, given the Otago Regional Council's observation of the 3 June event that groundwater was elevated prior to the event, and actually reached the surface at several ORC South Dunedin monitoring bores, why are the conclusions and recommendations of the 2014 Becker report, and you have a copy there before you, included in this report? In other words, what measures are being taken to implement groundwater suppression for a rainfall event beyond 1 in 10? Given the ageing wastewater and stormwater network in South Dunedin, that the Becker report significantly states will become less effective over time in depressing GWL. 4, given the relationship between GWL and SLR, as highlighted by the 2010 Fitzharris report, why is this not mentioned in this current report? Furthermore, the 2014 Becker report assumes that measures to control rising GWL in relation to RSL will maintain GWL at its present level. Why is this significant relationship not addressed in this current report? 5, why isn't option 1 of the 2014 Becker Report being seriously considered now as a means of containing and suppressing GWL? 6. Given the welcome proposal to upgrade and redesign the Portobello screen this current financial year, how does this tie in with the scenario A of the 2014 Becker Report, where the proposed newly installed localised pump stations will collect water out of the subsurface drainage system and discharge to the existing stormwater network and hence to the Portobello Pump Road Station? 7. Given the alarming acceleration in climate change around the world, isn't it time, councillors, to review the 2010 Fitzharris Report and formally ask that lovely gentleman for an urgent update as to our revised action plan timeframe? I believe the above are legitimate and important questions to ask, and certainly will be put to all of those of you who are seeking re-election next year. With the greatest respect, those of you seeking a further 3-year term have 11 months to convince the electors that something positive is being done by way of engineering solutions to protect the homes of many South Dunedin households from another weather disaster. And like Christmas, I predict it will certainly come one day. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Wiggery. Questions, councillors? There are no questions. Thank you very much for your submission. Now, our next submitter is the Taieri Community Facilities Trust. Welcome. It can be a labyrinth in here.
Sure.
Welcome. The next 10 minutes are yours.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors, staff and gallery. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jeff Woodcock and I'm speaking on behalf of the Taieri Community Facilities Trust. As you'll know, the Trust began the pool development project for Mosgiel in February 2014 following calls from Council for a community-driven project to develop an aquatic facility. So based on that request, we put up our hand and we're endorsed to proceed with the feasibility study, during which we had feedback from over 2,500 people. We presented to 70 organisations representing thousands and got a clear indication from the community that they needed a complex that could cater for the whole community, from toddlers right through to the elderly. And we needed it to cater for the demographic both now and for the next 50 years of growth. Now what you have before you is a recommendation from staff to adopt a 2-pool option and for a price of around 14.4 million. However, this concept fails to meet the needs of our community. So it fails to meet the needs of over 5,500 elderly people by not providing hydrotherapy, that warmer temperature which is required. It eliminates them from the target market, from serving the community. It excludes this whole demographic. And because this pool is not just about swimming, it's not just about learn to swim, it's not just about water safety, it's about providing a place for our community to come together. It's about social well-being, it's about social connection, and to exclude a whole demographic is to break down, it's to fracture the community. And so, and you know, when we look after the elderly, we're looking after ourselves. We are all going to get older. This is not just an investment in 25% of our people. It's an investment in 100% of our people who will all grow old at some point. Now, the two-pool design also excludes teenagers who, that follows a national trend of excluding teenagers from pool design by having a 25-lane lapped pool, 25 metre, not lane. That pool, it provides space for teenagers for permanent recreational space. That's water basketball, that's water volleyball, that's always set up. So the idea is not so much to get a competition facility, but get a facility which specifically caters for teenagers who, in Mosgiel, there is not a lot there for them. And as we can bring together our whole community, our families, our young ones, right through going to teenagers, to our to our older adults and then our elderly, this is what we need to bring our community together. So the community made it clear they asked for a full pool option, and they offered to fund $7.5 million towards it in terms of community fundraising. So the community have asked for a full pool option. The trust is therefore asking for a full pool option. The steering group have asked for a full pool option. However, the recommendation to pool has ignored these voices, and it's proposed a solution which goes against the community. It goes against the steering committee, against the trust, and what it does is it potentially undermines, if not cripples, our fundraising capability. By fracturing the community, it fractures our fundraising capability, which means that going for this option could potentially cost the council more and deliver less. So staff say that we can't achieve what we wanted to do for 15 million, that it'll cost more like 20 million. Our position is that, like the courthouse, those figures have been overestimated. So our position is, if we can get a solid commitment from council as to how much they're willing to put into this facility, then we can go and get defined, detailed quotes for building this facility so that we're working with real numbers and not speculation. So what we'd like to ask is for the council to endorse a collective impact model for the project, and to give the trust the opportunity to act on the recommendations of the steering group, and to get detailed design and build quotes for the four-pool project, so that we can present to you solid figures, not speculation, but actual solid figures for how much this will cost, and done according to the budget that's put together. So approving this would not actually commit the council to proceeding with the project. It would just simply progress it on to the next phase, which would provide the council with indisputable figures to work with. So as the trust, we believe we're presenting the council with a win-win scenario. So a win-win scenario with no risk. It's in April, if the council if as a council you approve a full-pool option, the figures stack up and it gets approved, you end up only paying half and you get double, and the community gets what it wants, so everybody wins. And it's a no-risk scenario because we're not asking for any extra money now to get us through to April, to get those quotes to you. And even beyond that, it's a no-risk scenario because as a community, if we cannot raise that 7.5 in pledges, then the council's off the hook. Okay, you're not left holding the baby, because no work will proceed until we have all that fundraising in place. What we see is the two-pool option being a lose-lose scenario. So the council effectively pays more and gets less. You put in significant extra millions on behalf of the city, and the community doesn't actually get what it needs. We get a small pool, but we don't get a community centre. We don't get a heart to our community. And as a trust, we'd have to go back and tell the community, tell the elderly, you don't matter in this project. We'd love to provide for you, but it's not going to happen. So the decisions made today will affect our community for the next 50 years. These are significant decisions. We need to get them right. And look, I just really ask you to hear the voice of the people in this. Council's never heard community speak so strongly. 2,500 respondents, 70 service groups, all coming up with a very clear message. This is what our community needs. The community is committed in heart and wallet to this project. it's unheard of for the community to put up their hands for so much money, but we've done the research, we've talked to the people, talked to so many people who are all willing to financially invest in this project. So, and it's in your power, and in your you have the ability to empower the community to act on this, to really get stuck in and to make something really special for the city, really special for the community, which is own that sense of ownership, that community ownership would be powerful. So look, I'd just like to end with the words of our esteemed Mayor. Our community demands and deserves quality facilities, whatever they are. When we decide to do something, we need to make sure it achieves its intended purpose. If we focus on the value of a project rather than just the cost, and then do the job as efficiently as possible, people will appreciate the investment in their communities future. So I challenge the Council to focus on the value of this project to everyone in the community, to focus on the intended purpose of the project, to provide a recreational facility for all ages. And I challenge the Council to adopt a collective impact model and do the work in partnership with the community so it can be done as efficiently as possible. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
We're happy to take questions.
Happy to.
Yep. Questions, councillors? Councillor Culp.
I've got two questions.
Sure.
First is, have you any idea what financial commitment we would have to make to get it to the point from here to where we would have something that we had enough details on to, sort of like a quote rather than the sort of estimates we've got here? And second, the model you're proposing, I'm guessing since the steering committee's probably been talking about this have they been talking about this within a steering group? The model you're proposing is not what our staff has proposed, and I'd like to understand what you understand to be their concerns and the advantages, because it's a different way of doing things.
Yeah, sure. With the model, you're talking about the design of the facility or the management model of the project?
No, I'm talking about the management model of the project.
Thank you. Collective impact is a model that's been used quite extensively around the world now in collaborations of this style, where you've got council, stakeholders, community all wanting a similar thing, but having different parameters and benchmarks that they have to work to. And the reason we're suggesting that, as I mentioned in the report I wrote, a steering group wasn't easy. You know, trying to run things with a committee, as you'll know, isn't often the best way, and collective impact is now showing that by having everybody putting their cards on the table, remembering what they're there for, working for the best interest, but still being able to meet the boundaries that I understand council have that may be different to a community-led project. That then means the boundaries are put in place, the reporting structures put in place, and we as the community can then go and speak to our stakeholders and keep reporting back to council on the models that you've asked for. But it just gives us the freedom to work within something rather than being constricted. And it means, I mean, the community does have its own answers if it's allowed to work within council's parameters, and that's what we're trying to achieve here.
I'd just like to add to that. So really condensed down, community impact means that the council can set out all the parameters that enable it to tick all the boxes that need to be ticked, but empower the community to then take the initiative and drive the project in a way that satisfies council requirements. So, and this was, we thought the project was beginning on this track. Back in January 2014, the council stated the community must drive the project to build a new pool or it will likely not happen. Councillor Vandervis mentioned the desire to, quote, empower the people of Mosgiel to organise the kind of pool they want and the substantial funding for it. Councillor Noon stated, we will send the signal to the Mosgiel and the wider district that the city wants the community to drive the projects. We will support them by providing capital, but need to be driven from the people. So that was the sentiment that was coming from the council in January 2014, and so much so that 30,000 was diverted from in-house spending and there was a call made to the community to put together a trust to drive the project. So collective impact just means that we return to the original intent of the project and have the community driving it.
Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Jeff and Irene, for being available for questions here today. A couple of what-if ones. If the council were of a mind to seek quotes for the four-pool option, as you're suggesting, as well as the two-pool one, would the trust be prepared to still back a 50-50 contribution if the four-pool came to around 20 million?
First thing is that we believe we should be getting the quotes, not that we want to drive the project as in build it, but we believe if we can get a quote that includes the goodwill and the in-kind that's being indicated to us, then that would help keep your price down. And then once we've got those quotes, then we would go in a partnership so that it meets council requirements around the funding. Anything any different to what we talked to the community about last year, we need to go back to our community because we're representatives of them, and we know they wanted full pools. We know that people have indicated we could get up to 7.5 million. Any change from that, we're going to have to go back. Even with the two-pool option, we can't say, well, we're working on behalf of the community because they haven't been aware of this until now.
Could I just respond to your question one, which we didn't answer, I'm sorry, which was the price to get us through to quotes in April. The Trust is passionate and we're willing to wear the cost of producing those quotes, so no cost to council.
Councillor Bazet.
Jeff, we've got quite a strong recommendation from staff with regards to the reasons why they recommend a two-pool option. And there's quite a formidable lineup of professionals that are backing that particular option. Are you saying to us here today that, and I'm wondering why you haven't had the opportunity to refute that, maybe you haven't had the time, are you asking us to delay making a decision until such time as you are able to refute what is in this paper that we're considering here today? Is that why you're here?
Okay, so we didn't get a chance to refute it because it wasn't made available to the Trust until the document was lodged with Council and made public. We would have loved the opportunity to go through it in detail and to provide you with a detailed second half to the story. There's that proverb that you believe the first until you've read the second. So we believe that there's a lot of speculation in there, but it's probably beyond the scope of this to go into the detail. I mean, but we're happy to meet with council and to go through the document in detail. But what we're asking here is just the opportunity to move from speculation to concrete figures, to go with a mandate from council and get design and build figures for the full pool option, so that you know exactly what we're looking at, and we can really make everything sort of have a higher quality of information to base our decisions on.
Bearing that in mind and looking at the budget that we all were talking about, the 14 million, are you saying that if you had time, then you would come back and give details at how you could secure a four-pool option within that budget? And if that's what you're asking for, what sort of time frame are you talking?
Yeah, effectively that's what we're doing. Normal projects would set a budget and then deliver the very best that they could for that budget. And so if we can get a concrete commitment from council, this is how much we're willing to meet, we can put that together with our fundraising, and we can get proper quotes that will deliver the best. And if that's four pools, the community will be elated. If that's not, if we get design and build quotes that come in under 3, then we'll, as a trust, we need to go back to the community. We need to say this is the best we can deliver. How far are you likely to support it?
And what sort of time frame are you talking? How long?
Oh, sorry. We would deliver back to council before April next year.
So
yeah. So short answer is yes.
Councillor Vandervis.
The statement that that nothing will proceed unless funding is, quote, in place. Could you clarify a wee bit what you mean by in place, given that
Yep, I'll do that.
we still have the memory of 45 million that was supposed to be in place for the stadium and it turned out to be 330,000?
The way that capital fundraising campaigns that I've been involved with work is that you go out and you ask, and it's not door to door and it's not letters, it's personal asks, and we've already got a list of targets for that. It's not about sausage sizzles or anything like that, it's about peer-to-peer giving. And the way that has worked in the ones I've been involved with in the past is a pledge was considered okay. That's something that council would have to consider. The recreation centre in Clutha that I was involved with, we had pledges for over 2 million, and there was one for $1,000 we never collected, and that was all in that time. A lot of people pay up front there and then. Some people want to pay over 3 years. So again, we're aware that your time frames are looking years 17, 18. It would give us time to have that coming in before they started, before you started building. So yeah, it would depend if you're happy with the normal model for capital fundraising, but it would be up to us to provide the proof that we really had that money.
So, in your understanding, the funding would be in place if it was pledged?
That's the normal model for capital fundraising.
Okay, and you said that in the case of the previous fundraising that you did in Balclutha, that quite a few people actually paid up front.
Yep.
What percentage paid up front, and what was the scale of that project, roughly, just roughly?
Okay, so the whole project was 5 million. The community raised over 2 million. We made 18,000 interest on the money that came in before we had to pay anything to council. Those are the figures I've got on the top of my head. But I mean, I'd be happy to go through more with you some other time if you want more detail.
Okay, fine. And Mr. Woodcock said that he wanted council approval to go away and get proper quotes to show that we really have something firm to deal with. Given that you already have had some significant funding, what is to stop you going away and getting those quotes anyway? Why do you need council approval, given that we talked about 14 million and you guys coming up with half, or 15 and half?
The model that the steering group used was driven by council, and we followed council protocols, and we've raised design and build quotes and things along the way, but we were told that now was the time to get the overarching costs in place, and that things like design and build would be looked at in the next stage after you have made your decision today. So we accepted that, but we now sort of feel like perhaps we should have been trying to get them as well. We've had discussions because we need to know for fundraising about what we're going to be up for, but we'd just like, we'd like to be able to come with a proper quote with a dotted line on the bottom that would be ready to sign if that was what you wanted to do.
Okay, and Mr. Woodcock said that we would be only paying half and that it's a no risk scenario. If in the event it did turn out to be 20 million, would you still be looking to raise half?
No, but that's one of the safety factors of a design and build, and all that risk as well can be mitigated right at the beginning in terms of the timing of the ownership transfer, all these sort of things. So, no is the short answer.
Right. I'm interested if you feel confident that the risk is mitigated at the beginning, given that this council was absolutely not going to pay more than 95 million for the last big project they did, and it ended up.
Yeah, that is a fair call, and there is, like I say, there's ways of doing it in terms of it might be set up and running for a year before the council takes over ownership. There might be, there's definite solutions to that problem to mitigate that risk.
Okay, and you also said that the community must drive the project, and it needs to be driven from the people of Mosgiel. Are you yourself one of the people of Mosgiel?
I am.
And you live in the community, and your sense of it is that the whole of the community is behind it.
I do live in the community, and the overwhelming majority are for it. The overwhelming majority. In fact, it's the intensity is almost, this should have been in place 30 years ago. The existing pool was 85. I can remember swimming in this when I'm a child and saying it needed replacing, and I'm 60 now. This sort of thing. There's the overwhelming sentiment within the community is that the community is behind it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have got 2,500 respondents.
And yet when the councillors went out to Mosgiel to have a meeting on the subject not that long ago, we were surprised that very few community people other than the trust showed up. What was your understanding of that response?
My understanding of that is that the community thought that we were working on their behalf and they didn't need to be there.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Lord.
Yeah, look, I just had a question, and it was, there was two questions. The first one was, you were talking about pledged money. Do you find there's many, in your experience, is there a reasonably high uptake of people that pledge to giving what they've pledged?
Say that, have you got your microphone on?
Oh, yeah, I don't think it goes on off, is it?
Yeah.
Is there a, where's the on button, is it? No, just get close to it. Right. Is there a percentage, do you have a figure that you know that people that pledge, that don't donate, that don't go on, that renege on their pledges?
Yeah, the only one I've been aware of was that rec centre, and it was $1,000. I was involved with the hospital children's ward 18 months ago, and we got every penny and more. The neurosurgery campaign, it was all the money and more money flowing in for another 12 months afterwards. So that's the main ones I've been involved in around here.
Yeah, this is another slightly different question, but I buy a bit of steel from time to time, and I just know that prices for steel haven't really gone up in the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, they're actually about 30% cheaper, the steel I buy. But do you have any reason to not believe that you could still get a price around 15 million? Are you still confident that we can build a pool for that, full pool?
Yeah, the indications that we've had are that we can get what the community is needing for 15 million or under.
Councillor Hawkins.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks guys for coming and speaking to us this afternoon. Just a couple of questions. Well, it's one question really in two parts around the collective impact model. Under that model, who assumes legal liability for the project, and in the case of project overruns, because I understand that you can say, well, we have a set amount of money and design within that, but it's not like you're going to get 3/4 of the way through building a pool and then stop. So in both of those instances, under the model you're suggesting, who would be responsible?
Yeah, the collective impact model, part of that is sitting down and working out who is in charge of what and who has responsibility, because it differs depending on the project you're working on. The question around the funding and the council being left carrying the baby as such, that's what we're trying to say. You guys are saying you're not going to build to 17, 18, that if you go ahead, that gives us 3 years to get everything in place so that you won't be left with it. I know everybody's really scared about what happened with the stadium, but watching that from the neighbouring community, it wasn't a good community-based project either. It just, I remember watching it thinking, oh help, this could end badly, and it did. We're not suggesting the same model as what was used in that, and it needs to be nutted out, and I can't answer all your question now because I don't know what council's going to say their parameters are, but it's something that needs to be worked out collectively and agreed on and signed up and then worked to.
But the trust is open to accepting responsibility for any project overruns should they occur, based on your not a penny more.
We wouldn't enter into something unless we had a signed document that said that the project was not going to cost 1 penny more than that, and there are contracts that you can get with that and penalties if they don't uphold their end as well. So that's the sort of thing we need to be working to take away the risk for all of us.
Councillor Vincent Pope.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for all the work that you've done and will continue to do, no doubt, involved in this. You've told us several times that you have a huge level of support in the community for this project, and given that council has committed, in principle, an amount to match the fundraising target that you consider realistic, my question really follows from a couple of the previous questioners, and it is that if the level of support in the community is that overwhelming, what would be your or the community's reaction to safeguarding the question of any overruns beyond the 14, say, by way of a dedicated local rating area to pay for any further cost of the pool, should it cost more than 14 million? So.
I can't answer that on behalf of the community because it has never been put to them, but I have been involved in projects where there is a local rating to cover a project, and it has been raised in the past as one possible model, but yeah, I'm not prepared to speak on behalf of the community unless that's taken to them, but it is certainly one option to look at.
Further questions, councillors? Councillor Pick.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to tease out a bit more about kind of your view of the cost of this project. And the best steer, as I understand it, would be the Selwyn pool, which Warren Marnie designed, I understand. I'm just thinking that you're kind of suggesting in your submission, the written comments you've got here, that they would, you could save design costs by engaging them to do something like the Rolleston pool, and that's a four pool option, is it? With a hydrotherapy as part of it. So is it in the back of your mind that you're thinking that Selwyn pool at Rolleston is a guide to why, that our $20 million option that staff have put here is not realistic? It would be much lower because that's what it cost 3 years ago at Rolleston.
Okay. Yeah, so I think 2011 for the Selwyn pool. The 4-pool option that was produced by Warren Marnie for the steering group added another 500 square metres to the floor area, which wasn't picked up in their initial designs. We had hoped that they would just use the Selwyn, the same Selwyn design, which is what was in the trust, which would have meant that we weren't reinventing the wheel on that front. So that 20 million is actually not the same 4-pool design as the trust's original design. It's significantly smaller, and the Selwyn facility is a fairly highly spec'd facility, and there's definitely areas that we can reduce the costs down from what they did.
So and their pool 4 years ago cost 14.7,
I think. Yeah, and they said they'd like to increase the hydrotherapy area if they did it again.
Thank you.
Can I just follow up on that and ask you if that was the total cost for the Selwyn pool?
Total cost, groundworks, management, admin, total cost 14.7.
Thank you. Councillor Wiley.
When you look at the 2-pool, 4-pool option, if we have 4-pool option, the community will raise or pledge $7.5 million. What do you think? Would they still do the same for a 2-pool option or a 3-pool option?
We would have to go back and talk to them about it. It's like I said before. You've eliminated a huge portion within that 2-pool option. So that really impacts our fundraising capability, because it's like going to people and saying, would you support this? It's not built with you in mind. In fact, we'd rather you didn't come, but would you still like to give us some money for it? We would have to really consult and go back through the process, and it's very time consuming and expensive to actually do a funding capability study. But that's what we'd have to do. We'd have to go back and check out the sentiment within the public to fund the lesser option.
So really, you can only assure us that the 7.5 million from the community would be for a 4-pool option only?
The fundraising capability study that Compton's International put together for us was based on a 4-pool option as outlined in the feasibility study last year. So that's what we measured the giving against. Okay.
Do you see any usability issues between, obviously there's going to be some, between a 2 and a 4-pool option? So, for example, lane swimming and things like that?
Yeah, okay, so usually there's different pools because they have different temperature requirements, different depth requirements. that sort of thing. So lane swimming, because it's a high exertion activity, requires a lower temperature of water than say leisure pool or hydrotherapy. So by mixing your lane in with the leisure, you actually do a compromise with the temperature. You're getting lane swimming in a higher temperature, so it means that they can't get to the same level of physical exertion. I'm not sure if there's safety issues around that, but certainly there's nowhere in New Zealand where they raise and lower the temperature of a pool to suit its use. Each pool is basically set at the depth and the temperature for the target use of it. So mixing pools is it's a compromise and it's not ideal, and we haven't found anywhere else in New Zealand where they actually mix lane and leisure swimming. It's unusual because you've got toddlers in a pool which then becomes lane swimming, which requires a certain depth, so your arms don't hit the ground. And so there's lots of issues around it that come up from the compromising that's happening.
Based on my experience at Moana Pool for kids, and it would often obviously be closed more often too, for short periods.
Yeah, that's
okay. What was your feedback or view on the Sport New Zealand report?
Yeah, the Sport New Zealand. I won't ask for a show of hands as to who's read it. What you've got in the staff recommendation is the key factors from that report which support a two-pool option. There are actually a lot in the Sport New Zealand report, and in their guidelines, their aquatic guidelines, which are categoric of the need for hydrotherapy. The need to they take it from the point of view that everyone should be retrofitting their aquatic facilities to provide for the elderly. It's a very strong, strongly worded statement from New Zealand support that hydrotherapy is essential. So I think in terms of getting a balanced view, it's worth the councillors reading the full report. We were surprised at their perspective on our fundraising capability, because to our knowledge they have not interviewed our community, they have not had the conversations, they haven't done the canvassing work, and to our knowledge they don't have a background in fundraising, and so it seems odd from the trust perspective to get Sport New Zealand to comment on fundraising, but yeah.
What about where they talk about the catchment area?
Yeah, the catchment area, it's in the census. So and in the trust feasibility study, you can see exactly where those population figures come from. So again, we're a little bit confused. Census data.
Okay. In the trust report, there is some comments about the OPEX and what Watershed have said. Any comments on that?
Okay, so the operating expenditure was modelled by Watershed based on their modelling, throughout the country. The trust OPEX was modelled on actual budgets, so these are real world expenses that are incurred in a real world other scenario rather than a modelled scenario. And we've spent extensive time talking with DCC staff and aquatic staff. We had it down to the rosters for lifeguards, so you can see exactly when the lifeguards were on and when they weren't. And the Watershed one is basically a model. So it's that kind. That's our perspective. We think that real world data is more useful than model data, and maybe there's some more work to do around that.
Okay, just one final comment, and you've sort of answered this already. How confident are you of a design to build for 15 million?
Absolute certainty.
Councillor Staines.
Thank you, Your Worship. First question, you mentioned you think the numbers that have been obtained through the consultants are inflated. What leads you to believe that they're inflated, and what is it that has been put in there, in your view, that causes those figures to be inflated?
Okay, so when we first interviewed BBD, when they presented their figures, they were saying that they were taken from a worst case scenario. So giving the very upper limit of what we could expect, because there was a lack of design detail. So they had to assume the worst in pool construction and materials. Go for the very outer limit. Was what the BBD sort of came back with us, and it's also costed from a really commercial perspective. So in the sense of, I think there's 1.2 for project management costs in there, and just in informal talks with actual construction companies, they're saying you could significantly save here and here and here. So maybe inflated is the wrong word, it may be overextended, but it's certainly that outlying district of a high quality facility.
So, as I understand it, the next step is $300,000 of design detailing. If that $300,000 of design detailing that gets it through to a tendered position results in quotes coming back nearer the 20 million than the 14 for a full pool option, are you prepared to accept that we could not fund that as a council at this point in time, and that the pool would then not be able to proceed because we couldn't fund it?
Yeah, the trust will sit around and have a drinking session and just commiserate over the fact that we weren't able to do it. We would accept it. The reality is that we really do believe we can get it down, but if we've got a budget and we find out from our design world guys, well, this is the very best we can do within that budget, then we've got rock solid figures, and we'll just accept whatever that comes out at.
So if council was to put its absolute maximum, 7.5 million based on 7.5 million you're going to raise, and we said, well, okay, you go and get a design build, this is the maximum we'll put in there, and we had a criteria in there that it would have to meet from a quality and operational perspective the requirements that the city had, because the ongoing cost comes from those. Would that be something that you believe would give you the full pool option for 14 million?
Well, under 15. It's the collective impact. It's talking to the council about what your baseline is. About these are the requirements. We need roof over the pool. And we can work to those requirements, and yet we believe that we can deliver for 15.
If you were to do that, Chris, that would give us exactly what we need to be able to go out and come back with exactly what we need to show you what you need. And we might be in business.
But the criteria here, there is absolutely no way I could vote for the city to allow another project like the stadium, where we know that there are areas of the stadium with significant capital involved that have had to be reworked and will have to be reworked in the future because things were left out at the time to make the budget work. So you have to accept that it would have for my vote anyway, it would have to be to a standard that the aquatic services team here signed off on to say, yes, we're prepared to take responsibility for a design build at that standard and what's being proposed.
Yeah, we're not sitting here saying we're going to go away and get you something shonky and come back with it. We're saying if you tell us all the parameters that you need in this project and the design quality and everything like that, we'll go away and come back with something that's...
So the final question, if that came back and said, well, your numbers were right, the best we can do is a two-pool option.
Yeah, then we'll go back.
Then where are we with the community fund?
So we would go back to the community to say this is the best we can do for the budget. How much are you willing to put into it? We would do a funding capability study again, get that figure, bring it back to council, put it together, and you guys can decide. But in terms of the 300,000, that is that money goes towards that two-pool, exploring the two-pool option, because you need to produce detailed working drawings. Our hope was that by using the Selwyn design, they will already be in existence and save the council money. Just going straight from the design to get it quoted and skip the reinventing of the wheel that's currently happening.
I'm going to just break there, and I think Councillor Noon's going to move that we extend the public forum. Moved. Yes. Second, Councillor McTavish. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Process issue. Do you have any more questions, Councillor Staines? Councillor Lord.
Yeah, look, I did have one other question that was, you've sort of covered it off, Jeff and Irene, but you said about the $24 million price that came back to the steering committee had an extra 500 square metres to what the Selwyn facility did. Is it fair to say that, well, I've sat through some of your steering group meetings, I've heard a lot of what's been said, but I've never at any stage felt that the call was for a grandiose, over the top, something ridiculous. I've always felt that you wanted just something that was functional, that had the swimming capabilities for all the groups. So would you feel that it would be a fair comment to say that that design is perhaps higher than the community need?
Yeah, so we do feel that the extra 500 square metres was excessive. That certainly there needed to be an increase in the space between the pools, but that's not even a fraction of the 500 square metres. So we did feel that that was excessive, and it was disappointing. The Trust wasn't able to actually be present during the initial briefing with Warren and Marnie, where we could have actually asked them to adopt the Selwyn design, which they had originally done themselves. So.
And the other question I've got, and it relates to what Councillor Staines has just said, but I would feel nervous in a system where we just gave you $7.5 million and said go for your life boots. But what I hear that you are asking for is not that, but you're asking for the right to work collaboratively with the council to design something that you believe the council would be happy with, and that also the community would be happy with.
Your understanding is correct. And to proceed with those detailed quotes, it would be good to have a firm commitment from council as to what the maximum is for the project, and then put it together with our funding and get the best that we can for the community. Thank you.
Are there any further questions, councillors? Okay, there are none. Jeff, Irene, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikhail.